Well, let's talk about fiscal planning in Lagos State at this time. The Lagos State government has blacklisted no fewer than 176 estates in Etiosa, Ibejuleki, and Aja areas after declaring them illegal development. According to the state government, the affected estates were built without obtaining layout approvals from the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development. Government says it will take action at the expiration of 21-day given to developer to perfect the estate documentation. The move is part of ongoing efforts to regulate development and ensure strict adherence to urban planning laws. Now, joining us for this conversation is Estate Surveyor Public Affairs Analyst Mustapha. Ewenla. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for coming.
It's a big armor coming to some estates in Lagos, 176 of them. At what point did we get to this level?
Okay, so when many of us woke up to that news on Monday, based on the statement released by the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Fiscal Planning and Urban Development, lots of stakeholders like us felt very concerned because 176 housing estates is a huge number. And the question many of us were asking is, how many estates do we even have in Lagos State for Lagos State government to come up with?
Considering the housing deficit that we have.
Considering the housing deficit. So that tells us that there's a fundamental problem somewhere. Before you build an estate, it doesn't take you, it takes well over 1 year, 2 years before at least you make significant progress on that project. So the question many of us are still asking to you this minute is, where was Lagos State government when this construction started? Because before you, as a developer, before you build an estate, based on Section 28 of the Lagos State Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development Law of 2010, it mandates all private, even government developers to get their layout approvals before you start constructions. And what layout approval is clearly saying is not the same thing with building approval. Layout approval is that government wants to know how you plan to lay out your estates. They want to know where you plan to put your roads. They want to know where you plan to put your drainages. They want to know how you plan to put your infrastructures, even to the point of how you plan to put the spacings between your, the buildings and even recreational centers.
And that's what Lagos State government is saying at this time about the layout approvals.
Plan, yes. And so for me, I think that majority of this problem, again, is not solely on these developers. It is blatantly on the government itself, because the government shouldn't have even allowed them to continue construction. The government shouldn't have waited for the developers to start construction, to finish these estates and sell out to prospective buyers, and is not fully occupied with residents, and you now come to declare them illegal estates in their words.
How long does it take to get those approvals?
So let me tell you, we live in a country where there is no clear timelines for approvals, and that's the honest truth. If you approach a land officer now that you want to process layout plan, it cannot give you a specific time. Even that time is given you is still speculative. But we should get to a time in this country where there are clear timelines for this. Don't forget that these developers go to banks to get loans to develop these estates. A developer who has gone to the bank to get loan and it does not even have the time. It does not even have the luxury of time to wait for these approvals to come before he starts to develop and before he starts to sell, because he has a mandate to repay back the loan to the bank. Some of them have gotten APGs from the bank, and there's a timeline. In the UK, for example, it takes just 8 weeks. 8 weeks for you to get a layout approval for one building. And it takes 13 weeks for you to get a layout approval for an estate. 13 weeks.
There are hindrances for these developers to get this layout approval. Is that what you're saying?
So there are internal, let me tell you the honest truth, it's not even hindrances, there are internal bureaucracies from the ministries. The processes involved needs to be fast-tracked. The government needs to come up with a more robust program.
Do you have facts to back this up?
Yes.
What are your facts?
So let me tell you, I've been in this industry for the past 15 years. I've had cases where I've had to develop projects for clients. And we've had several hurdles in securing layout approvals, not to even talk of building approvals. And that's why even at the time in this state, we had the time when even the Lagos State governor was saying that many estates, many properties in this Lagos State are not even registered. So the topic of discussion right now is on layout approvals. If you are talking about even title registration. That's another madness on its own. Everything is bureaucratic in nature. It takes time. It takes a lot of money. These things should be streamlined such that these developers can find these things easy. We are talking about 17 million housing deficits. These developers are trying to salvage the situation by creating a level playing ground for everybody to play. So the government must play a key role in that place.
What are the risks against this unapproved structures?
The risk attached to this is quite enormous. Because number one, you are endangering the life of people living in that estate. So many estates in this Lagos. Look at what we've experienced in the past few weeks. The issue of flooding, when there's no proper plan for drainages. That's why most estates are flooded. Even the Lekki of today, even the Ikoyi of today. There are the reports of flash floods everywhere because these developers did not get prior layout approvals from the government. And that's why we must say at this point in our time in Lagos State is seen as a pace-setter to many other states. So we must get it right. The government needs to come up with fast-track programs to enable developers get these approvals in a matter of no time.
The Lagos State has this agenda called the Theme Plus Agenda. He has raised that many times that residents should key into this agenda for proper development. Are you not suspecting any foul play somewhere? If this ministry is saying you need to get your layout approval, are you not suspecting any foul play that some developers can be so smart to swindle the government or to bypass the government, not to get the approval and continue building?
So I know that there's a lot of fault on the part of some developers too.
Because just a moment, you have been blaming the state government. You're not also looking at the angle of some of these developers.
Yes, I totally agree with you because there's a high level of impunity going on in the real estate sector. And we've seen the Lagos State government come out every other time to clamp down on these developers. And that has also taken us to areas where we've seen defective buildings everywhere and buildings keeps collapsing. So now let me tell you, the government has a lot of roles to play in this particular topic of discussion. If a developer starts, in this Lagos State, even if you start building any kind of structure in the creeks, the government officials will come there and give you a stop work notice if you don't have building approvals. But the next thing that we see after 1 or 2 weeks is that this developer goes back to site and continues construction. Who gives him that order to continue construction? So the Lagos State government must get it right with enforcement. We must make this state work. Enforcement is a very critical clause here. If somebody is building and he does not have approvals, don't allow him to build. And that's why people will build houses that don't have approvals. People will build estates that don't have approval. And when prospective buyers buy into these estates, they now become a living hell. There are estates in this Lekki, 5-story building, no lift.
What happens if they don't get the approvals? What do you think the Lagos State government is
doing?
So
as a matter of law, based on Section 28 of the Ministry of Physical Planning, Urban Development Law 2010, you must get, it is a must. The law mandates you to get your approvals before construction. Before construction, if you don't get this approval, based on this last statement, the Lagos State government has given them 21 days to come and reconcile and all that. Okay, now the question is, if after 21 days, what the government is going to do is to seal up those estates. That's based on the law because you have violated a very critical section of the law.
So are you not in support of that?
So if that happens, do you know what that reaction that is going to degenerate to?
Considering the fact that we have collapsed building in the states,
so I agree.
It's becoming a recurring decimal in the states.
Yeah. For me, I mean, we do not. My take is we do not have to wait.
Okay.
To post-construction before we move in as a government.
Mustapha,
during construction, we should be proactive to stop these works.
Mustapha, Ewenla, we just have to go now because time will not permit us to continue with this discussion. Mustapha, Ewenla, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Still ahead on TVC Breakfast Saturday, GM